That's your one oracle.
That's my
I think that's an antenna.
Are they the same?
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is for informational purposes only. This podcast also does not establish a standard of care, doctor-patient, or client relationship. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. And because each person is so unique, all listeners are encouraged to connect with counseling and medical professionals for assistance with their personal journey. All people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved.
Welcome to We're Not Fine. I'm Dr. Talia Jackson.
And I'm Doug Jensen. We thank you for listening every week to our deep and thought-provoking conversations about relationships.
Welcome, friends, to another episode of
We're Not Fine. And as you all may recognize from our previous two Octobers, we have beautiful Kaya with us today.
Kaya Jelani, our mystic and psychic and medium and goddess.
Oh, thank you.
We're so excited.
And we always try to mix it up a little bit. We've talked about dead people.
Can you hear dead people? It was episode 1.
Yep.
It was. And we're going to talk so much about relationship intuition today.
That's right. And how to differentiate between butterflies in your stomach versus the red flags of maybe, just maybe, your intuition is just wanting you to be with someone who dysregulates your nervous system. And we also have some questions about like how to sniff out aura or like vibes and intentions, which I'm excited about.
I love it.
Welcome, Kaya.
Thank you.
How are you feeling about being back?
Thank you. It's so exciting. I love being here. So, of course, when I was asked, I was like, yeah.
Well, this was like my favorite part of the story is we have been a little bit flying by the seat of our pants. And usually we have you in every October, but we changed our format a bit to do some mini-sodes for also really similar reasons. Like we're modeling self-care. We want to show what it looks like to just show up and give what we have to give with love in our hearts instead of just draining our battery. And so when we asked you to come in, it was only like 3 days ago. And we were like, oh my gosh, I don't suppose you're free on Sunday because we're recording. And you said,
yeah, actually I am. I have a window of time. I did. I said, hell yeah.
I always am expecting you to say like, I've been waiting for you to ask me.
Hey, I didn't tell you, but I did a little bit when I came in, but I did have like I'm like, I haven't heard from them. It's October. Like whatever. And then you had texted me and I was like, I still shocked myself. I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
you were like, hello.
Send out
and
the
I was
message
like,
and you get a response.
Well, oh my gosh. And it's so beautiful because you were just telling us early, like a few minutes ago, that you are in this space of recovery and recharging your battery and that you took a sabbatical. Yeah. And I want you to tell us about that because I'm so inspired.
Yeah, thank you. So actually I took a trip to Peru back in April and I had my own experiences that allowed me to know that I need to slow down and that I need to listen and that's a big part of self-care and healing. And I really got pushed to the point of understanding how important it is to show up authentically and present instead of in that energy of like, I got to be here. I got to do, and I'm thinking about the next thing.
Sounds very familiar. Would you feel comfortable sharing like what were the signs and symptoms of like, wake up, Kaya, you need to rest? Because I'm probably experiencing
so I had actually very profound moment. I met up with a friend and it was one of those days where it was like going here, and I squeezed in a ridiculous amount of things like I usually do because I worry that, I don't know, if I'm not here for this person or meet this person, then who's going to do it? And
that's right.
Right. That's another part that you have to experience a bit of an ego death with. Right. And so I showed up to this place with this individual and I listened to the call to be there because they were in a place of tenderness. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be there. But you see, I showed up in that energy of chaos and like, I'm here. And I kind of felt like Pigpen. And I remember the feeling of just feeling unsettled, ungrounded, misaligned, and also embarrassed that I showed up and I was in this it was clear that I was anxious. I was like, oh, look, I just got this text and it says that, is that fraud on my account? And then literally they go, so like we just purchased food and that text comes from the restaurant to show you that your food went. And I was like, what am I doing? I was like
not in your body.
Yes. And it was so uncomfortable. And it was a moment where I was like, what is going on? Like, you need to pause. You need to stop. And that was the place that I was like, I need to start moving in this, as I was telling you guys, that hell yes energy.
Yes.
Of if it feels like a hell yes, then I show up and I give my all and I'm present in it. And it doesn't have to feel like a hell no for me to not go. But if it doesn't feel like a hell yes, then it's like, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to reserve my energy. I'm going to spend the time with my kiddos
and you said pantsless as well.
Pantsless on the couch.
Yes.
Fuck pants.
It's always a hell yes. That is what I said. I said fuck pants. I did.
I mean, I love this so much. I feel like we all need to hear this.
Did it feel simply, I'm kind of curious, was it simple depletion, do you think?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay. Yep.
It's like it is that vehicle that's running in idle, where you know that the gas tank, the light is on, and you're like, I'm just gonna keep going. But at some point, there's an anxiety, right? Because you know that you're running on empty. It was that where it's like, I have to stop. And when I talk about manifesting and being in that energy, if you are in that chaotic energy, you're going to attract more chaos, right? Like you're going to
notes. Can we not relate to this?
I was just going to say, I think everyone can relate to it.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a culture that is work, 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 and go, go, go. And it does not work.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even, I took a trip to Italy with a number of friends a couple weeks ago for my big birthday. Mm-hmm. And, I got depleted. Like, it was a lot of work. And I found myself coming home and thinking, I need to go pantsless and just kind of sit on the couch.
But I do feel like that's the right choice a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I think
take
so
off
too.
your pants.
Yeah.
But, it's really hard to like recognize that. And then you start to feel responsible. And as an intuitive person, kind of felt like you needed to be there for that person.
Yes.
But, Kaya, it is no different than our work. There are times that I'm not at my best and I come into the office and I'm like, I have to fucking get my shit together because I want to show up the best I can every time. Yeah. And sometimes it works and sometimes it's harder.
Yes.
I always get there, but it's hard.
It definitely is. And again, it's that piece of how can I, as we all know, how can I better serve the people that I'm working with if I really, really take that pause and take care of myself so that I can show up authentically? Because there is that piece where that person may be talking and they're like, oh, this is so hard today. And in your mind, you're like, and I got to do this. And I got to. And you're like, shoot, I just missed what they just said. Did they just say something profound? And now I have to have them repeat it. And then now you're in your own spiral of chaos.
But that's why the caretaker needs to be able to show up with space. Mm-hmm. And like, even when you just said, I'm taking off my shoes so that I can be grounded. Mm-hmm. I just think about like, what are all of the opposites of chaos?
Mm-hmm.
Kaya's not wearing shoes today, just so everybody knows.
I took one shoe off, but I haven't been brave enough to put it on the carpet.
Oh,
I'm not wearing pants.
I knew that was going to happen. Did we actually have a few questions to ask her?
And you're kind of talking about this already, like what the difference is between anxiety and stress, I'm going to add, and intuition.
Whenever I talk about intuition and anxiety, there's a conversation that comes up, and I bring people's awareness to the point of, we live in Minnesota, so we talk about like Valley Fair, right? So like I often talk about, if you stand in the line for the wild thing, your body doesn't know the difference, right? You're like, am I going to die? It's kind of exciting, but I might. It could be fun. I don't know. I could live through this. And I'm like, that's invigorating, right? So there's a piece of that energy where intuitively there's a less of a intensity of it that feels more subtle, and it feels more of like a I think I should pivot. It feels like I should pivot.
So
there's
that's
something a little bit.
intuition.
Yeah, that's what I would say for me.
Less riz.
Yeah.
Like you hear about people who are
Yeah.
about to board a plane
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, I cannot get on this plane.
There's something subtle there, right? It
Yep.
doesn't come as this intensity of like a la, like, oh my God, like I'm about to get on the wow thing, right? It feels more like a, as one of my mentors would say, that intuition often feels like a whisper, like this friend
Yep.
or a buddy that's along for a ride, and you might hear them like, hey, don't get on that plane. And you're like, what was that? And it's like time stops for a minute so that you
Yep.
can pay attention to that subtle nudge or whatever it is. That for me and
Yes.
how
I feel it.
help guide people through that is the subtlety of the message, if you will.
Which means that the anxiety is intense and it's like nervous
Yeah.
system and fear.
Mm-hmm. And the two are not always separate either, right? Because
That's what
sometimes
I was just thinking. It's hard for me to even differentiate.
Yeah. So sometimes the piece can come in and I feel completely anxious. Something feels off. Well, that's complete misalignment, right? If something feels like it's misaligned and you can't put your finger on it, it's still going to create an anxiety inside of you. Where what is that? What is that? Still, you have to get to this place of where can I find my center and ground so that I can listen? And what are the distractions? Who or what is it that's influencing or revving up the intensity of whatever this is right now? So that's where it comes to the discernment, right? Because then when we're talking about even having empathic abilities, it's, well, is this a part of my being sensitive and being able to feel the energy of a space? And or we can even go into the far logical and the piece of the brain that says, okay, now I have in my conditioning watched people very heavily, and now I'm very hyper vigilant of like every single move. Like those start to blur, as far as like, is this just me being really observant to my environment, or is there an intuitive edge to this too? I don't think that they're separate often. There's definitely a place where they meet.
There's something I loved so much about the idea of a misalignment, which to me, it's like when I think people, I don't know, when people come to you, I feel like they're probably coming to you being like, what should I do? Should I take a left or should I take a right? Should I say yes or should I say no? Is this the right or is this the wrong?
Yep.
But there's something really lovely about the idea of misalignment, that it doesn't mean it's a right or a wrong. It's sort of like trusting your own intuition to see if it's the right fit for you, like in that moment, if it's meant for you in the moment.
Sure, because sometimes that moves, right? Sometimes maybe the energy or the capacity that we woke up with, and I've talked about this with like having the capacity account, or sometimes we might wake up today, we may have a lower access of our capacity than we did yesterday. So then that then makes even more of a misalignment, which is why it's important to then revisit, like, is this a day that I will not be wearing pants? Or is this
I've made a decision.
and a shirt? Like a shirt and pants, like I don't know. But it was different yesterday, right? Like yesterday I had pants on and no shirt. It's different. Like you might get a mixed bag of energy. I don't know.
Right.
And you need to check in every day to make sure your clothes are in alignment with your capacity.
Right.
How many clothes shall I wear today?
It's so interesting. I must tell you, I'm back at the Valley Fair situation. I remember standing outside the London, that big Ferris wheel in London, and I'm a hugely afraid of heights guy.
Wait, what is it called? The London Eye?
Yes,
it
is.
But yeah, it's really cool. I'm afraid of heights too.
So I'm horribly afraid of heights, and I turned myself like, but it was clearly not like I'm going to die on this. It was, I'm anxious to go on this because I think I'm going to get anxious. It was horrible. Like it's all glass in these little, in the ride. And so I'm like, I'm just going to close my eyes and get through this.
Oh, no.
It was miserable, but it was anxiety versus intuition. But I'm really loving this whole conversation. And by the way, I'm kind of curious when we talk about endorphins or adrenaline and cortisol and all of the stuff that happens with that. Like, I don't know that it's any different. It goes back to your comment, like it's very connected.
I don't think it's any different.
Yeah, I think you experience it in your intuitive experience.
And especially when we're dealing with those corners of the mind that we maybe are unfamiliar with, or even if we are, it's kind of hard to say like, and this is what it is, or this is, we all know feeling and we all know energy when it moves through our body, whether we want to call it something or not. Some of us have done a lot of work in bringing awareness to it so that we're very aware of ooh, I know what that level of electrical charge that's moving through my body right now is, and that really feels like misalignment, I'm not going to go. Right. It's paying attention to that.
Well, and it's also a perfect segue because so we want to know how this shows up in relationships too, right? And so even what Doug was saying, like the endorphins and the adrenaline and the cortisol and all of the things. And before I even ask the question, which is which is like, how do you know if it's a red flag or butterflies in your stomach?
Yeah.
It's like, I want to bring up the idea that if we aren't as in tune with knowing our bodies, there are a million different ways, or our nervous systems, a million different ways that we could be tricked. I feel like if you've got trauma in your history, or there's been abuse in your family of origin, your dysregulated nervous system might feel like, ooh, I'm courting this person and they're emotionally unavailable, and that feels like love, and that feels like attraction.
Feels like home.
It feels like home.
Yeah.
Versus an idea that just occurred to me that there are some people, also probably trauma and attachment stuff, that if someone feels really healthy and their nervous system feels calm, that's really unsettling to them and really boring. And they're like, I have no interest in that.
Sure. Yeah. Especially when they're getting into that space of like, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you can get into all different conversations about people that wait for the shoe to drop and then they create it, right? And then go ahead and sabotage something.
Oh, that's really good.
That is so
right?
good and so real. Like, we create what we fear the most.
Sure. Because you're like, well, when is it going to happen? You know what I'm just going to do? I'll do it. I'll die on the sword myself.
Right.
I will sabotage this by myself.
Take the not knowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you push and you push and you push to see what the person can tolerate or in that situation.
Yeah. And then you're like, see, there it is.
There it is.
I knew
right.
it.
It's a cycle for sure.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah. So I think it's to pay attention to that. But one of the things that I have been sitting with when I was in Peru, I had, again, a lot of time to reflect and just do some really deep internal work. And one of the messages that came to me and through me was about chronic energetic harm reduction. Okay. And so when we think about this, we think about our relationships and people that we care about, romantic or non, we notice that there may be patterns that present, and you may have like there was a misalignment. Okay. So then it'd be like, hey, you know what, friend, you really upset me. This happened. Can we talk about it? And then you may talk about it and then you come to an agreement. Okay, boom, we've set boundaries around what it was that was harmful, right? But now then the thing pops up again. It is popping up again and again and again and again. Now that energetic harm has become chronic. Yep. And now we need to look at, wait a minute, like what is happening to my energy field, right? So again, like back then, again, I'm sure this doesn't sound any different from the work that you guys do, but it's, what is my emotional state at? What is my energetic state at? Am I feeling more hypervigilant? Am I feeling more withdrawn? Am I feeling like doing that isolation? Like all of that. What do I feel like I need to do to now protect my energy because I'm now exposed to this person that's causing this chronic harm?
I mean, it's fascinating. It's just like, what does this person do to my nervous system, whether really, it's well-intended or not?
Yeah, that's it, Talia. All I can think about is anxiety, right? It goes back to anxiety because I always tell people, if you're feeling constantly like deep, not getting what you need, if you're not feeling heard for what it is that you've said that you want and need and think and feel, you're going to feel constantly sort of like searching for it and running after it. And that anxious attachment is exhausting. You and I have had a more personal conversation about like, the percentage by which you're getting what you need from a relationship, right? And it was a beautiful conversation you and I had. We were like, 40%, Doug, fuck that. It's not going to work. And then you and I had a conversation about how much we would really need in a relationship. And I remember telling you, I think I want to be 80% because I want to leave some. And you and I talked about in our work, like we got to give 20% maybe of ourselves to the people that we serve. So we can't give ourselves entirely to one person, right?
You cannot.
God, that's a beautiful comment. I think this is so important.
You cannot. Because the conclusion and understanding that I came to a lot of this that was going on when I was doing my my journeying and reflecting and healing there was a message. So let me just, I was in a space, I was in deep meditation, and I was journeying with plant medicine, well known in Peru. And ayahuasca, yeah. And so I was working through some anger and some rage that came up. And I was just like, and I'm mad at this person and fuck them. And I was just so mad, and I felt it. I could feel it. Like I felt nothing for like hours. And then finally I surrendered to the rage, which is really uncomfortable for me. I don't normally get into a place of like, bah.
Tell me what that means. Like just expressing it?
Expressing it is very difficult.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. And so I got to this place where I was finally like, yeah. And I literally said, I sat up and I was like, I'm done with this. And I was like, fuck this. I'm done with it. And then usually the ayahuasca is very wise. It has its own wisdom. And so when I said that is then when I started to purge. Okay. And after I was able to settle, the message that came was basically that I was so angry and rageful at these individuals, but they were just operating in what they believe is their best selves, right? Despite of whatever pain that may have caused me, misunderstanding, and whatever that meant. And then they basically said, when will you, and when I say they, I mean my light entourage, my guides, and of my highest and greatest good. And they said, when will you understand that you are simply casualty to other people's wounds?
Oh,
and I was like,
God.
Damn. So really, like, that's where you guys are going to leave it at?
That's it? It's not very satisfying.
I was like,
and there's
that's
no
not
justice.
cool.
There's no justice.
Although it really helps to depersonalize it, right?
Yes,
Because they're not your wounds, right?
Correct. I was like, so then it made after, of course, because, I was told like, even after this, you're going to still have integrations and understanding. And it really brought me to a place multiple times I've come back to this and I've debriefed it and I've talked about it. And I'm like, it really means that what people do, it's not personal to you. It is their stuff.
It's 100%.
And you have to just get out of the way of the bull, which goes back to what we're talking about. And it comes back to that chronic harm reduction. Am I being harmed? Is my energy harmed? Right. And that means everything. Joy, wealth, abundance, connection, you name it, whatever it is, finances. What is it where I'm starting
Physical
to
health,
see
all of it.
Vitality? Where am I seeing this depletion happening? That it is obvious that there is an energy that's feeding off of me, because
that's right.
Because they need that. Like, what is that? When you look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself. Correct.
Except what the light entourage is saying is it's really not personal. You're just a casualty, but also you don't have to continue to show up the way you've been showing up for these people. Oh my God.
But here's what's crazy about this. Like if you are in a typically mutual relationship, I do think there are ebbs and flows, right?
Absolutely.
So there are times where you might have to give more than the other and you might have to take the reins and be the person in charge and make sure that you're taking care of things for that person. So you're going to get depleted by that too, but it's important to talk about that.
Correct.
Right. And so I think being aware of it, though, we're always talking about awareness in this conversation. Like just be aware of what's happening for you.
Yeah. And having those conversations of, hey, you know what? I'm feeling depleted.
Yep.
And I have had these conversations with people that are close to me even since this, where, hey, you know what? We're having this exchange. And I have been told that too, of like, hey, like, this is a little like harmful, like what's going, and I'm like, that's not my, so again, like, that's not my intent. I'm showing up in this like, bleh! And I'm like, how can I re-regulate this like chaos that I don't mean? And that's because I'm not being present. And that's the last thing that I want to do is allow someone to feel that I'm not listening or that I don't care because I didn't take the time to be on my couch without pants on, right? Like,
okay, that is like but seriously, that's the most important message.
We're going to call this episode "Being on the Couch Without Pants On."
Is what
that
we all
is what
have
we're
to
going
do.
to call this.
But like what you're saying is that we are each 100% responsible to make sure that when we're showing up in the world, it's almost irresponsible for us not to take care of ourselves.
Oh yeah,
because then that's when we do the most harm.
Right.
Like we have a million stories of how this has played out.
We have a million stories. And one of the things that, and you really just covered this, but I tell a number of my clients, others' choices are not about you. And it's really the basis of this. And it's really hard when people are blaming you or pointing fingers or saying that you've done this to them or whatnot. And it's appropriate to say, take responsibility for the things that we wouldn't have done or could have done differently. But boy, we take so much on. And so being a casualty to other people's wounds, their wounds are not about you.
No.
Their choices about how they manage that are not about us.
But our choices
it's hard.
to continue to give the
That's
way
right.
we give. I mean, it's
and
just
to not be victimized by it or a casualty.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And there's another piece about that I've really been sitting with too. And that's I had heard something a while back about potential. And then when we're looking at the potential of others, or like, God, this person has so much potential that it's not them and that it is us and what we are seeing the potentiality in them.
Like
right?
we're projecting.
Yeah.
That's
and so we're like,
real.
oh my God, you could be such a great da 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 da. And then they're like, cool, I'm never doing that.
That's your dream. That's your agenda.
Yeah. And then how do we personalize that by being in relationship with people? Another thing that I'll just share quick is that I had another mentor / teacher. She had said something in a class one time, and she said, be careful about the stories that you create with other people's free will. And I went, oh,
I feel like you need to repeat that. Can you say that again?
Be careful about the stories that you create with other people's free will.
Oh my God.
Like, just sit with that for a second.
Yep.
How many of us have done that?
Oh, all day, every day.
All the time.
Oh my God. All the time.
And it's almost like, what a waste of time. The stories that we're like narrating and re-narrating, and they're usually not like benefit of the doubt stories. It's like worst case scenario stories.
Worst case scenario. And it's going back to this sense of responsibility, like we as clinicians and you in your role. I think when we're in a helping role, it's really hard not to feel like you want to direct people. So I always try to remember, like, living an honest life or living an authentic life is kind of the goal. And as long as that's the case, we're not necessarily telling people how to show up or projecting onto them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's not hard to do once you kind of get that boundary. I think for you though, Kaya, it's harder. I'm going to tell you, because I think the work that you've done, having been a recipient of it, like you feel things that are unexplainable to people like you or I.
Like the high level of sensitivity to like all of the unspoken, the intent, in which the next question is about intention.
The question is whether we can tell if someone's intentions are good or not. Is there some of an intuitive antenna for reading someone's aura you wrote down?
Yes.
Which I'm kind of curious about that word. Which I'm kind of curious about that word aura for you.
I kind of want to guess each other's aura colors because I can't see them.
Did you say oracles?
Can I guess that Doug's aura is purple? That's your one oracle.
That's my
I think that's an antenna.
Are they the same? But it's kind of like, are people coming from an authentic place?
Can you read it? Is there a signature?
You're like, Doug's oracles are showing because he took his pants off.
What I really want is some sort of like glasses where I could put them on and be like, ew, bad vibes.
Why are you pointing at me?
Because what am I going to, does she have bad vibes?
No! Out there.
I love those people.
He's like out there somewhere where there are people that have bad vibes.
There are definitely some bad vibes. So like, how do you differentiate between and I feel like I know from a therapeutic point of view, but the manipulation versus like a narcissist. Go ahead.
The best thing that I guide people to is spending time with themselves. And I don't mean like just a prolonged, right? Like isolated time. I mean, doing the meditative practices in nature, in your home, when there's absolutely no music, no nothing, so that you get so used to your own energy for so many reasons. But for this conversation in particular, the more time that you can attune your awareness and your consciousness to your energy, when someone comes into your space that is dysregulated or misaligned, you're immediately, that needle inside of you is going to go boop, 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 and you're going to go, oh, I don't know what that is, but that feels off. And you don't need an explanation. You don't need details. You just can remove yourself. because there's a choice.
You know, you said something though really important. I think we make explanations. I think we make excuses. I think we think maybe that person's having a bad day, or maybe the person has got this going on.
And maybe they are, but it sounds like it doesn't even matter, because if there's energetic harm, walk away.
Sure.
Like you said, when you were pantsless, someone was at the door.
Yeah.
You don't have to go get it.
No.
Unless it's DoorDash. Well, then they could just leave it.
Yeah, they
check and make sure you haven't charged some food. Leave it at the fucking door.
I'm not. No to DoorDash. I'm not wearing pants. Thank you.
Leave at the door.
Leave at the door.
Unless you want an uncomfortable interaction.
Could be.
For you.
For you. Because I'm good.
Because I'm good.
My energy's good. I've been on the couch without pants on.
Knock on the door at your own risk.
Kaya, this is like the best day of my life. Every time you come into our studio, which is like way too small for 3 people, it's just like
we're gonna fix that.
So cozy.
I mean, I just love everything about this, because this is also.
Is this where I cue you that there's a 4th question?
Yes, except I'm not done with number 3. Yes, I am fully aware, but I just feel like
your oracles?
I feel like I need to underline a million times that like we need to sit with our own energy, that there's no magic glasses to see if somebody is a creep. Although I remember
you laugh as if you do know of some glasses.
Okay,
I'm wearing them now.
I know. I'm like, come on, Doug.
I remember though. Okay, I guess I should fin. My ADHD meds wore off 2 hours
They
ago.
clearly did.
Doug
they did.
Doug like asked me if I have bipolar. No, this is like unmedicated, unhinged. Okay, this thought that I wanted to finish is we're all responsible for sitting in and knowing our own energy so that we know if something's off. First of all, really fucking brilliant. But secondly, I remember a reading that we did years ago where you told me, was it when I brought my son in, the idea that like you did want to meet someone whose aura was gray. I still remember that. Gray.
Yeah, it was trippy.
What is that about? What is that? Why could someone's aura be gray?
Trying to find the easiest way to explain this. So we're born with this beautiful arc of energy around us, and it holds the rainbow light colors that match up with our chakra systems. And when we have trauma, when we have really bad things happen, it can create cracks in our energy system.
Yep.
And our energy can leak out, and or we can be in energetic spaces where that energy can latch onto us, like a parasitic energy, and feed off of that too. That dynamic of the broken integrity aura field around us, and then even putting the layer on that there's when I say addiction, I don't mean chemical, but emotional, energetic addiction to certain dynamics, where some people are addicted to chaos, right? Or some people are addicted to like lower vibrational behavior. So layer all of those things onto one really unfortunate person. And
we're going to call him Mr. Gray.
Mr. Gray. Okay. So layer all of those things onto Mr. Gray. You'll see that it'll be harder for you to see the light, to be able to see the beautiful rainbow colors, because they're carrying so much density, right? They're not doing the work to sit with Talia and Doug and pull these things out of their closet of their unawareness. They're not doing the work of meditation or whatever they need to do to heal, so that they can stand in their most clear self. Is when you will see a really gray or heavy, dense aura.
Wow.
So
isn't that powerful?
I brought up to you that time, that person had just gotten out of prison, and like years of prison. So you can imagine the amount of trauma, energy that they're probably exposed to, disconnect from family or people that actually care about that, like the layers, right, of what they would need to work through. So it's difficult to access that rainbow-like energy that you'd see maybe with a newborn baby, right?
But it's just also sweet to think that we're born with all of it and that we need to find our way back to that joy and the higher vibration stuff. Are you ready for me to move on to our final question?
No.
How about now?
No. I want to talk about like what it takes for people to be in that space of feeling where they're at. Like, and you talked about trauma. Like, I think about trauma, depression, anxiety, the more significant mental health disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar or mania by itself. I find myself thinking it is hard to do that. It's hard to just sit. And I have like meditation is what a lot of that is meant to do, right? Like to be aware of your body and to be aware of what's going on in it. And I know so many people who never sit still.
Yeah.
And like you said, creating that chaos and maintaining that chaos because it's uncomfortable to feel all of that.
Yeah. So
right?
it's for them to do their best, right? And not all meditation has to look like sitting on a pillow and like I talk about that so often. Relief. Yeah. It can be roller skating. It can be working in your garden. It can be making a pizza from scratch. It can be being in the shower and singing your favorite Michael Jackson song. Like you don't have to raise your vibrations with sitting on a pillow somewhere or in a temple. You don't, and any chance that we can get outside and connect with Mother Nature is so encouraged. We are all people, men and women of the earth. And it is what our ancestors did. We didn't have the resources that we have today. We didn't have fidget spinners and all the things, right? The fidget spinner was getting a leaf and spinning that on your fingers. So baby, oh no.
Well, and the addition of social media, the addition of those distractions.
My God, so many layers.
I know there's so many layers. I also think, it's really interesting to me. I have found myself recently, I was just going through a really like depleted time. And I remember I got to my office and there's something about giving energy to somebody else and refocusing and distracting that I find my centeredness really quick.
Yeah. Like in our work.
Yeah. I literally got to my office on a Monday morning. I'm like, I don't think I can fucking do this. And the minute it started, I'm like, this is my zone. I am fucking good.
Yeah.
And it was so quick.
Yeah.
And my energy changed. And by the 10 appointments that I had that day or 9, I'd do a long day. I was so much better. And
it's
I'm
like
fascinated
doing
by
what
it.
we love. It's like vocation. It's showing up in a way that just feels so in alignment.
But talk about energy. It's just really an interesting thing that happens.
So the way that I understand that.
Yeah. I'd love to hear your take on it.
Man.
Because it doesn't feel right.
It's so yummy. Like it seems insane. You're like, what am I doing
I'm
here?
I'm giving, but I feel more depleted.
Had a breakdown at 7 a.m. Yeah. How am I doing this at 11? I've been there.
Yeah.
For people like us that are in the place of offering service to those that we know depend on us, there's a certain level of responsibility that is on our soul, not just our mind and our awareness, but there's something that shows up with like this. I often talk about the divine table of creation. Before you even came here and you were birthed out of the womb of your mother, you agreed. Your soul said, I am coming to this earth to help people heal. And I understand that's a part of my responsibility. Well, knowing that we have responsibility to ourselves, because another piece that'd be good to add is about unconditional love and how that is not necessarily for others, but that we romanticize that for other people, but that truly when we get back home to source or whatever our omnipresence is, nothing else matters but when you are asked about unconditional love. And you're going to be asked about connection, and you're going to be asked about compassion, forgiveness, and love, but first for the self, always.
Yep.
And if that is compromised, then that's where we start to get into trouble, right?
Wow.
So,
that's the answer to unlock literally all the questions of the universe, like unconditional love, connection, compassion, forgiveness, but first for yourself, and then the rest of humanity.
Think about how if you practiced the unconditional love for the self, that what I was told during my journey of when will you understand that you were simply a casualty or a casualty to other people's wounds? Well, at what point when I was giving and I got lost in who I was within that experience, if I was giving that back to myself, I would have woken that up much sooner, because I would have been like, wait a second, I'm pouring into this experience outside of myself. Like, when can I pour that into me so that I can fully come back into alignment?
I love it so much. We need to hear this message loud and clear. Pour it back into, check this off the list tomorrow by 8 a.m. Pour back into me.
I saw the side eye.
I know.
She wrote it. She wasn't even looking at the paper. She was like,
I do that all the time. So the question, it just continues with relationships. And this is like, we're already talking about a million other fascinating things, but it is like back to relationships. When we think about anxiety, intuition, when to stay, when to go, and we're listening to our intuition.
Yep.
How do we know when maybe it was in alignment and now it's misaligned and it is time versus I just need to pour some love back into myself, recharge my battery, and keep working? Like, I don't even know if there's an answer.
Really. I have a rule for that. So that's what I call evolve or evacuate. So when I talk about evolve or evacuate, this is when one person, I've had couples come to me, but typically it's when one person is feeling the great of the energy of their partner, and they're like, what is happening?
Yep.
I'm feeling some misalignment. I'm feeling some agitation. I'm feeling some misconnection. Like, what is going on? And they are at that point that they're questioning, like, should I go? Am I tripping? Like, what is this? Yep. And I say, I'm going to tell you, and I want you to remember this: evolve or evacuate. The evolve piece is for you. Focus on your own evolution, your own growth. What kind of help do you need, right? Like, do you need to go talk to someone? Do you need to go on a trip? Do you need, I don't know, a trip where it's just you and your kids so that you can reconnect to that energy? Is just for you and your partner that you need to, what do you need to do so that you can take care of your own realignment? Yep. Okay, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so I focus on that person that's in front of me by like, how can we pour back into you? And it's funny that you talk about the kid piece, because I often will bring up the piece about the inner child work and accessing that joy, because that's where we are the most psychic. We know that our children are so magical. They say the most beautiful, magical things to us, and it's because they are so tapped in. We get back to that place when we can access the beautiful, I call them joy strings. And when I say that, I say, I'm not talking about childhood trauma. That's different. I'm talking about childhood joy. Yep. And when I get to this point, people are like, I don't know what that means. I'll tell you, I had one client, I talk about this often, and she sat there for a minute. She's like, and then she goes, fruit roll-ups. I was like, yeah.
Oh, there she goes.
And then she goes, moon shoes. I said, yeah. Yep. And she started naming lollipops, and
that makes me want to cry a little
going
bit.
to the creek, and it's so sweet. And
joy strings.
When you can access that energy, then you can realign, and you know what it is that brings you joy, to be able to reaccess that beauty within you before it was corrupted by whatever trauma challenges that have been presented to you throughout your life.
Yep.
What a beautiful exercise that we could do with our clients too, and our friends and our lovers.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So when you can access that point, then I say, all right, you've been doing the work on your own evolution. You see, two things have to happen at that point. Either your partner has to evolve as well because they're inspired by what you are doing, or that they are unable, and now you have reached the edge of their consciousness and their capacity. Okay. And that's usually at that point where you are like, you almost don't care anymore, because you're on this journey of the self and loving the self, that you're like, I see that this is misaligned. I'm not even freaking out about it anymore. And that's okay.
That's like the opposite of codependence and feeling like you have to clean up your side of the street, but I'm not looking at mine. It's like, my joy is mine, and I have to realign and access like the inner child, the joy strings. And then either you're growing with me because you're inspired, or evacuate, bitches.
Yep. And then what happens is at that point, so then that brings me to the other part. I say, okay, then that's the evolutional piece, right? Well, then it comes to the point of evacuation if that partner can't meet you at that place or you do, right? So then someone is going to get sick of someone
who's not growing.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, usually is what happens is then that day, and I say, some people are like, well, when? And I'm like, there is no when we're talking about energy. You don't get to question divine time. I know it's frustrating because we are on linear time here. However, is what happens is you wake up one morning and you are like, I'm done and I am leaving. That is like, it's literally like that, right? Anybody that's left a toxic job, a friendship, relationship, whatever it is, a family member, something gets awakened within you and your feet hit the ground that day and you're like, today's the day. We are done here. That's the energy and that's the activation that then takes you to the next level of the evacuation.
But this is so like my side of the street. I mean, it's like really incredible to think of like, I have to do my work and I'm not sure that you're growing with me or not, but you're welcome to try.
No, that's it. You know, and I always reference my graduate school professor who the very first day of grad school said, half of you won't be with your partners anymore at the end of this.
And he was not wrong.
He was not wrong. And I was one of the casualties of that because what happens is one person grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And when you have assignments like tell me a deep, dark secret you've never told anyone. And we all panicked in grad school, like, but that's what our clients do for us. And so it was a practice thing. Like, this is what your clients are you're going to expect them to do to you. So you need to do it for us and I'll destroy all your papers. And I'm like, did you? And I don't even know what I wrote, by the way.
He probably has his own podcast.
I remember we all just like, I'm going to go through my graduate school papers from my students. Look at this one. He killed somebody. But you know, that's the thing. Like, I find myself thinking that growth process that's unequal. Like when you start to have differential, I always tell people that's a concern. We need to be aware of it before it starts and start talking about it. The other thing I love, and I oftentimes do this with clients, is, you know, ask for what you need and want, ask for what your experience is, and let the person either respond or not. So evolve or evacuate.
I love it.
I'm going to use it over and over and over.
Tattoo, merch.
I love it.
Right?
For sure.
Kaya Jelani.
Evolve or evacuate.
Kaya, you
I love it.
are the greatest.
Are we done with her? Because I'm not.
Well, but don't you remember we have her all to ourselves for a personal reading? But this is like already 20 minutes more than we were supposed to be. Those are all the questions. I say we wrap. And then move on to our own personal psychic reading.
So I just want to say this last piece about evacuate. I can't let it go.
He was like, I need to get it in.
I do need to get this in. Like, I think that whole, and I really do love evolve or evacuate, because you can't limit your growth to accommodate someone else's stuckness. Number one.
No.
Right? And it's hard to leave.
I've done it.
Is hard.
It's painful.
I know.
We all have
you and I
done
have had
it.
this conversation, and there's a point at which if someone can't give you what you need and want. And I remember my client who I said that to, and she kind of panicked. She's like, you mean like if she doesn't respond, I'm supposed to leave then, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
That's so hard, though.
Yeah.
It is hard because
it's like they want you to say something else, and it's like,
you do.
So
and
that's the truth.
But also
keep asking,
the
right?
alternative is worse.
It
is what
worse.
I will sometimes say to people is like, okay, well, let's play out the alternative.
Can I add one more piece?
Of course, Doug. Take all the time you need.
Kaya, Talia might be joining us for this episode. I'm not sure if she is or not, but I appreciate that we can have this intimate conversation. I have found myself in the past, and I think this is something that people need to be aware of because I have some trauma in my past. When I started becoming aware of that trauma and that I was not taking care of myself, there was no return to a relationship I was in. I literally sat in my yard in my car, and it was about my mother in particular. There was an incident that happened. And I remember looking at my house like, oh, I think I need to make big changes.
Oh, that's
and it was
the moment
wild
that you were talking about.
And it's like when I started taking care of myself.
Oh.
And it was the moment I thought, I'm not going to keep depleting myself for this dysfunctional, toxic family of mine. And I remember thinking, I'm going to leave my partner. And then I thought, do I like being a therapist? Yes, I love it. Do I like being a dad? Love it.
But that's the hell yes. Like full
it is.
circle.
It is.
If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Take your pants off and yell.
Take your pants
Fuck
off.
no. Hell no.
Fuck pants.
Fuck pants.
Pretty sure that's going to
Really,
be the
fuck
name of
clothes.
the episode.
I think I changed it to fuck clothes.
Fuck clothes.
Fuck clothes. So that's what I think, guys. Like, I think it's interesting how our minds work. Yeah. But when you start to listen to yourself and take care of yourself, boy, life changes.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kaya.
Thank
Kaya,
you.
Such a pleasure.
Where can people
you.
find you? Because you know everyone's going to be scraping.
I can't
to
tell
get
you how
their
many, by the way, of
bones.
my clients have said, what is
The
her number?
favorite.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
I'm going to infiltrate her with my clients.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you can find me. See, I'll give my website. So
Yeah.
www.livinglifeluminously.com. Or you can just simply shoot me an email at thisluminousLady@gmail.com.
Which is
Damn.
so real. I mean, talk about like branding yourself.
And I don't know if you
That's
can all
correct.
feel her through the screen, but she's luminous.
She's luminous. I mean, you could just like feel that energy.
Thank you.
Yep.
And if you're looking for us, where can they find us?
We're notfine.com. If you want to subscribe, you will get information about our upcoming events, which of course will include Kaya. So you get to see her in person.
Oh, if you should be that lucky.
If you should be so lucky to live luminously. And then also, if you have any questions, anything you want us to cover, any questions you have for Kaya that we haven't covered today, by all means, put it in our little
That's a fun
subject
idea.
line and write our questions on there and submit it to us and we will address it.
Oh my gosh, I love
Love
that.
it.
I know.
And we are on Instagram, douglasljensen with an EN, Dr. Talia Jackson. We're Not Fine Pod. Go check us out on YouTube. I feel like this might be, if you've never seen us on YouTube, this might be the episode that you're going to just be like, luminous? I need to know more. Yes, today's the day. Get off your phone. Go look us up on your big screen TV. Also, TikTok. Our amazing social media person is putting out all these fun TikTok videos. And you can like, you can subscribe. We're on all the platforms. And we love you. And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks again, Kaya.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.